This guy says I'm financed by Saudi Arabia or Morocco. The wild part is that I'm making videos grounded in Spanish scholarship, Spanish archaeology, and a pretty mainstream academic conversation. Comments like this expose the cracks and sensitive points in how many people imagine the history of Spain. A lot of Spaniards today are uneasy with a past in which Muslims, Christians, and Jews together shaped what became modern Spain. Muslims did not even leave Spain until the 17th century, the height of Spanish imperial power. To deny that Muslims, Christians, and Jews formed Spain together is to fall back into the position Claudio Sánchez-Albornoz defended so strongly in the mid-20th century. An unchanging Spain, briefly interrupted by the Islamic invasion, whose true essence lay in its Roman and Visigothic past. Sánchez-Albornoz turned to toponyms, charters, and Asturian royal practices as evidence of deep continuity between the Visigoths and Asturians, who later led to the monarchies of the Duero, like Castile and Leon. On the other hand, we have a scholar like Américo Castro, who argued that the Spanish mindset or temperament was conditioned by more than 9 centuries of Muslim presence and an even more ancient Jewish presence on the peninsula. Languages merged and mixed, practices of exclusion shaped how each group saw the others, and communities lived along porous frontiers where ideas were exchanged even in the midst of intermittent warfare. For Castro, Spain was a product of what happened after 7/11, a country that could not have taken the shape it did without this long period of interconnection. My own stance is not identical to either, although I think Castro is much closer to the tools and questions historians use today. Sánchez-Albornoz is too invested in a teleology to be convincing now. Castro resists the idea that history is always marching towards progress. Sánchez-Albornoz imagined Spain as a slow river that did not move as quickly as the progressive societies of Northern Europe, but still flowed towards its destination, rooted in a pre-7/11 essence found among the Visigoths. Both scholars, however, agree that Spain eventually defined itself as a place that did not want to live like the Muslims, and that this opposition helped forge its powerful Catholic identity. I see Spain as shaped by all civilizations that preceded it, from the most ancient times to the present. Carthaginians, Romans, Visigoths, Muslims, Jews, and the many Christian and Muslim kingdoms with their own quirks, and finally the modern states that drew the borders we know today as Spain and Portugal. It is impossible to claim that Spanish mentality and culture were untouched by the Muslims. I'm sorry that you've imagined that I'm financed by Morocco or Saudi Arabia. In reality, what I present is simply how I understand the historical reality of Spain. No one pays me to make these videos, although I hope one day I can make a living doing this work. I'm not trying to push an agenda. I'm trying to let history speak for itself through the evidence. Historians who approach the past with fixed conclusions already in mind are not doing their job well. We have many tools at our disposal, and we need to use them all to gain the best possible perspective of how events unfolded. For me, the history of Spain is a story of intermingling cultures that eventually culminated in a strong Catholic identity. It is a history of both tolerance and intolerance. How we should live today is for readers and viewers to decide. My role is to give a clear account of how things were. Following the words of Thomas Glick in his 1979 book, I see myself as an interpreter of culture, like a psychologist analyzing a patient's mind. I take the evidence as my patient, analyze it culturally, and try to extract the meanings embedded in what has been handed down to us so that we can reconstruct the larger picture.